My name is Nadya. I'm a temporary school teacher living in a small town. My life is painfully average, except for one thing. My dreams feel too real. Since childhood, I've had dreams so vivid I could feel wind on my skin, smell dirt, even feel pain. But as I grew older, those dreams began to shift. Darker, colder, and somehow more real than the waking world. The last normal dream I had happened a month ago. I was walking down a hospital hallway filled with fog. At the end sat a faceless child holding a small mirror. The child raised the mirror and whispered, "Wake up, before you sleep for good." I jolted awake, breathless. But since that night, the dream hasn't ended. 2 a.m. I woke to knocking sounds inside my closet. 3 knocks, silence, then 3 more. My chest tightened. I got up and opened the closet. Nothing there. But the air smelled damp and metallic, like blood. I flipped the lights on, checked every corner. Nothing. But when I glanced at the mirror, I saw something that made me freeze. My reflection moved 1 second slower than me. After that, I started documenting every dream. Strange as it sounds, whatever I wrote, sounds, objects, even strange symbols, would show up the next day. It started small, a crying voice, a foul stench, or markings on my bedroom wall. But then my dreams began to predict deaths. Last Friday, I dreamed about Mr. David, the school's night guard. In my dream, he stood on the schoolyard, his body engulfed in flames. Over and over, he whispered, "Sorry, sorry, sorry." I wrote it down in my dream journal. That very day, Mr. David died of an electrical shock while checking an old generator. His body was found scorched. Then came the dream of Livia, one of my students, floating face down in a bathtub full of wilted frangipani flowers. 2 days later, I received news. She drowned while playing alone at her grandmother's house. Each night, my dreams turned into death omens, and I couldn't stop them. One night, I recorded another dream. This time, I saw myself lying on my bed, surrounded by dozens of hands reaching up through the floor, grabbing me. In the corner, there was someone who looked exactly like me, grinning unnaturally, black eyes staring. She whispered, "Don't wake up. This world is more real than your life." I woke up drenched in sweat, paralyzed. I could move my eyes, but my body refused to respond. Looking at the ceiling, I noticed black handprints, as if someone had climbed up there. The next morning, my journal had a new sentence written at the bottom. "Now it's my turn." But I didn't write that. Reality started to blur. People around me said I was acting strange. My students avoided eye contact, whispering, "Miss Nadia's smile looks wrong." My coworker Ronnie said I often stared blankly and mumbled in a language she couldn't recognize. But I had no memory of doing any of it. Worse still, every time I fell asleep, I wasn't sure whether I was dreaming or not. The texture of things, the smell, even the pain. It all felt more vivid than life. Things reached their peak a week ago. In my dream, I entered an abandoned house. In the center sat a chair and a table. Sitting in that chair was me, wearing a white dress stained with blood, her hair covering her face. She looked up. "You've lived long enough out there. Now it's my turn." I screamed and woke up panting. But something was wrong. I had no reflection in the mirror, and in my journal, a full page had been filled with a single word: sleep, 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 sleep. Signed, Nadya, but not in my handwriting. I contacted an old friend, Mark, who now works in parapsychology. He agreed to come that night. When Mark arrived, he stared at me for a long time and said, "Nadya, you're not you anymore." He showed me footage from a hidden camera he had installed days before. In it, I was sleepwalking, drawing strange symbols on my walls, laughing in a voice that sounded reversed. Mark explained that I had likely spent too much time in the dream world, and now my soul was splitting, one part still trying to wake up, the other taking over my waking body. The only way to stop it was to enter the dream deliberately, and destroy the version of me trying to replace me. With a basic ritual, Mark guided me into a lucid dream, fully aware and in control. I returned to the house in my dream. This time it was filled with warped photos of my own face, burned, upside down, twisted. And she was there. My other self. She grinned and rushed at me. We didn't fight physically. We fought with will. She showed me every nightmare I ever feared. My parents' deaths, abandonment, being buried alive, eaten by rats. But I fought back. I remembered the sound of my mother's voice, my students' laughter, the smell of morning coffee. I locked eyes with her and stabbed her with a mirror shard I'd picked up from the floor. She screamed and her body collapsed into black smoke. I woke up, alive, weak but whole. Everything was normal again. The dream stopped. No more voices, no more visions. My reflection returned. My journal was blank. Mark smiled. You made it. You came back. I went back to teaching. Life felt light again, until one night, I had a brief dream. The faceless child stood in that hospital hallway again, holding the mirror. You think you won? The dream world never forgets. You killed yourself. But who said the one who woke up is really you? I woke up, looked in the mirror. My reflection, smiled half a second faster than I did. Whatever happens, do not wake me. Those were Dr. Elias Crane's last words before he sealed himself in the sleep isolation chamber. I was the lead assistant on Project Morpheus, a government-funded study on lucid dreaming. The project's goal was noble, to unlock the untapped power of the dreaming mind. But Elias, he didn't just want to observe dreams, he wanted to cross over. Elias believed there was a place, a real place beyond dreams. Not just memory recall or imagined landscapes, but a shared sentient world that existed only when someone entered REM sleep with enough depth and control. He called it Somniverse. Most of us thought it was metaphor. I wish it had been. The first few nights, Elias's vitals remained normal. Brainwaves showed high REM density, but nothing dangerous. The live EEG feed lit up like a Christmas tree, and for hours on end, he lay perfectly still in the pod, strapped in and monitored by 6 different machines. But on the third night, something changed. He started speaking. At first, the words were random murmurs, but soon they became full sentences. He spoke of hallways with no end, doors that led to versions of his childhood, and people with no faces who whispered his thoughts before he could think them. The architecture adapts, he muttered. The world rearranges to keep you lost. Then came the drawings. He sketched them immediately upon waking for a short break. Jagged, frantic illustrations of infinite staircases, spiraling corridors with no exits, and a shadowed figure with antlers and a stitched mouth, always standing just out of reach. That figure haunted all of his dreams. He named it the Architect. By the 5th night, Elias refused to sleep anywhere else but in the chamber. He claimed that each time he returned to the Somniverse, he could go deeper, stay longer, and gain control over parts of it. But he also began to deteriorate. His skin grew pale and clammy. His pupils stayed dilated long after waking. He jumped at reflections. One night we found him curled in a corner of the lab muttering, "He's bleeding through. He knows I know. The dream wants to be real." I brought this up to the project leads. They dismissed it. They said Elias was stressed, that he needed rest and a psychological evaluation, but Elias refused any intervention. That night I snuck into the lab and accessed his personal video log. He was recording his dreams, not just in journals, but through hacked neural interfacing software. What I saw chilled me. A 7-minute video of Elias walking through a city of glass buildings that bent toward him like flowers. The ground pulsed under his feet. People stared from windows. only they weren't people. Their faces were identical to his. At the end of the footage, Elias turned the camera to a tall structure with a single word etched in massive bleeding letters: awake. That morning he didn't wake up. His body remained alive, stable, but comatose. He was deep in REM sleep, but his brainwaves were off the charts. We tried every safe protocol to rouse him. Nothing worked. Then, the dream started spreading. First, the team members began having the same dream: an endless hallway with flickering lights, a ticking clock, and a voice that whispered, "You're almost here." Then the nosebleeds started. Everyone who had contact with Elias for more than a few hours experienced vivid hallucinations, shadowy figures in the corner of their vision, mirrors that reflected the wrong version of themselves. And one by one, they stopped waking up. The lab turned into a morgue. The government shut down Project Morpheus and sealed the chamber. They buried the reports. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't sleep without seeing Elias, without hearing him, the architect. I moved across the country, new job, new name. I didn't tell anyone about Morpheus, but the dream followed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elias standing at the base of a crooked staircase. He looked older, thinner, his skin cracked like porcelain. He begged me not to wake him, not because it would harm him, but because waking him would wake something else. I started recording my sleep patterns. Strange things happened. Objects moved overnight. My fridge was filled with items I never bought. My neighbor who'd lived next door for years suddenly didn't exist, replaced by a bricked-up apartment. One morning I found a message scratched into my wall: "Your mind is a door, stop dreaming or it opens." But I couldn't stop, not anymore. Last night I entered the Somniverse fully. This time I didn't wake up in my room or on a dream version of a street I knew. I woke up in a black hallway, lit only by pulses of red light every few seconds. The walls were breathing. At the far end, Elias stood, no longer pleading. He smiled. "I brought you here," he said. "We're the same now. The dream chose us." Then he stepped aside and the architect appeared. Its mouth was still stitched, but it spoke into my mind like thunder in a closed room. "Wakefulness is theft. Reality is temporary. Dream is eternal. You were never awake." It reached out, and I woke up this morning, or thought I did. Everything seemed normal. My phone buzzed, my coffee brewed, my cat jumped into my lap. Until I looked out the window. There was nothing outside, just a dark void. No buildings, no sky, no birds, just black. And when I turned back inside, the rooms were wrong. The walls were angled. The colors shifted when I blinked. My cat spoke in Elias's voice. "You did this. You woke us. Now we are all dreaming. I don't know how to escape, or if there is escape. Maybe I never left the Somniverse. Maybe I never really lived. All I know is that every time I close my eyes now, I return deeper. And if you're reading this, don't fall asleep. Don't let your mind drift. Because once you see the architect, it sees you back." The first time I saw her, I thought it was just a dream. She stood in the corner of my childhood bedroom, barefoot, her long black hair clinging to her wet skin like seaweed. Her face was always shadowed, but her eyes, those colorless, lidless eyes, were locked on me. And then she'd whisper, "You buried me wrong." I'd wake up soaked in sweat, hands trembling, heart racing. It happened every night for a week. I stopped telling my wife about it after the third time. She chalked it up to stress. Maybe she was right. Until the footprints appeared in our hallway, damp, bare, leading from the bedroom to the attic stairs. My name is Caleb Weiler, 36, history teacher, husband, and, at least until a month ago, a complete skeptic of anything supernatural. I used to teach about witch hunts and urban legends, scoffing at the collective hysteria of the past. Now I don't sleep unless I absolutely have to. Not since I realized the dreams weren't just dreams, they were warnings or punishments. It started small. Dreams about digging, the scent of dirt in my nostrils, my fingernails torn and blackened. I'd wake up with mud under my nails, my sheets stained brown. My wife Emma thought I was sleepwalking. The doctor thought it was stress-induced parasomnia. They ran tests. I passed everyone. Still, every night she came, and each time she whispered, "You buried me wrong." I grew up in a rural town in Vermont. Quiet, isolated, forgettable. I hadn't been back since I left at 18, but the dreams, they dragged me back. I found myself standing in fields I hadn't seen in decades. The wind always blew from the east. The air was heavy with rot and wet leaves. I followed a narrow path in the dream, always the same direction, until I reached a hill with a twisted birch tree. That's where I dug. The dirt was soft, too soft, like it wanted to be opened. One night, I woke up with a small clump of white hair in my hand. Emma screamed when she saw it. We tested it. Not human, not animal. Lab couldn't ID it. That's when I booked a one-way flight to Vermont. My childhood home was long abandoned, weather-beaten and collapsing. No one had touched it in years. I broke in through the back, flashlight shaking in my grip. Everything smelled like mildew and thyme. The wallpaper peeled in long strips like flayed skin. And in my old room, there she was, standing in the same corner, waiting. I tried to confront her in the dream that night, tried to speak. She stepped toward me. Dig deeper. I did. The next morning I drove to the woods outside town, to that same birch tree from my dreams, and I dug. 10 feet down I found bones and something worse. A porcelain mask, white, cracked, mouth sewn shut. I called no one. I burned it all. After I returned home to New Hampshire, I thought it was over. The dreams stopped. I slept full nights. Emma smiled again, but something changed. We started hearing weeping from the vents. The attic door opened by itself every night at 2:13 a.m. Never earlier, never later. Emma woke up screaming that someone was standing over her. She described a woman soaked in black water with lidless eyes and bleeding palms. I never told her I'd seen the same. One night I bolted upright in bed. Emma was gone. I found her in the living room kneeling on the floor. Her hands were digging, ripping the carpet apart with her fingers. "We didn't bury her right," she whispered. "You brought her here." I pulled her away. She cried like a child. Blood on her palms, dirt under her nails. She didn't remember any of it the next morning. I set up motion-activated cameras in the house. Every room, every hallway. What I captured wasn't sleepwalking, it was summoning. Every night, either I or Emma, or both, would rise from bed, stare at a blank wall for exactly 3 minutes, then speak in whispers. Always the same phrase, "The door opens deeper tonight." Then we would dig, in the basement, in the walls, even in the backyard. Sometimes something watched us from the corner of the camera frame. Its face never stayed the same for more than a second. A woman, then a child, then a corpse, then a mask. I showed the footage to a priest. He never called back. His church closed the following week. On the final night, I had a dream, but it was no longer just a dream. It was here. Emma and I stood in our bedroom, but the walls were breathing. The bed writhed like something alive, and in the doorway stood her. Only this time, she spoke clearly. "You buried the body, but not the name." "What name?" I asked. "Mine." She stepped forward. For the first time I saw her face. It was Emma's, but melted, drowned, split. Emma screamed beside me and then crumbled into ash. I woke up screaming, but the bed beside me was cold. I ran through the house shouting her name, found her in the backyard, digging. Blood poured from her eyes. "We buried her in the wrong world," she sobbed. "She's in this one now. Emma is gone. She disappeared 2 days ago." There was no forced entry, No signs of struggle, just a trail of wet footprints leading into the basement and the unmistakable scent of earth and rot. They say she ran, that I'm unstable. But I've seen her, every night since. She stands in the corner of the room watching. Not Emma, the other one. I asked her once, "What do you want from me?" She finally smiled. "I want you to wake up, because this isn't a dream anymore. If someone finds this, don't go to sleep. Don't dig. Don't listen when they whisper. Don't answer the crying voice behind the wall. And if you ever find yourself in a dream, standing beside a twisted birch tree, wake yourself up immediately. Because once you dig up her name, she digs up yours."